Hello, everyone. I want you to start by imagining your retirement or even the next 10 years of your life if you're already in retirement. I want you to think about what you want to do with that last chapter. Are you maybe imagining lying at the beach, soaking up the sun, reading a novel, maybe? Or are you more the type that's maybe up north fishing in the summer near a cabin? At a cabin by the lake? Or are you someone who's really excited to just spend time with your grandkids and watch them open some over the top gift that you thoughtfully selected? Or are you imagining that you might end up in a rocking chair, noticing somebody walk in the room, but unsure who it is? And they say something and you can hardly understand because you can't hear. And you forget that you wear hearing aids and they happen to be on the table next to you. And then that woman that walks in the room says, "Hey, mom, are you hungry? It's almost lunchtime." And you think to yourself, that can't be my daughter. That woman's way too old. My daughter's so much younger than that. Unfortunately, this last scenario has become all too common. And I'm thrilled tonight to be able to share with you a few reasons why I think that that scenario is optional, that you can choose to optimize your cognitive performance and at the very least, delay cognitive decline. So I'm going to take you through why I'm so certain that Alzheimer's disease should be optional. And then we're going to talk about the real stuff that you came for, how to use the ketogenic diet to optimize brain function. I've already seen questions coming through about, is this right for me? Is the ketogenic diet right for me? And what we've seen over and over again is that it's part of choosing the optimal last chapter of life by optimizing your brain. At this phase, um, is everyone having audio issues? Or just a couple people? I see that coming through as well. So great. Thank you. Thank you. You can reach out to Tyler, I hope, and she can help if you're having any technical issues or Sulsari as well. Great. Thanks for confirming, everyone. Okay, so hopefully everybody is here to choose this optimum chapter in life and also to help your loved ones. Many people have shown up because one, you are either suffering yourself and noticing that your brain isn't working the way it used to 10 years ago. And so you're in the right place. You also might be caring for a loved one who's struggling with cognitive decline, and you want to make sure you're doing everything you can to help them optimize their cognitive function. And three, you might be related to someone who passed away, maybe with Alzheimer's disease, and you watch them go through the suffering. And your job right now is to avoid that. And so I'm excited to tell you you're in the right place. We're going to dig deep into this. First, I wanted to share a little bit about how I got here and why I'm so certain that you can reverse cognitive decline and certainly optimize cognitive decline no matter where you are on this spectrum. So first, I've seen it. I've been lucky enough to be trained by Dr. Dale Bredesen, and in 2017, I started seeing patients who were suffering with cognitive decline. And Linda came into my office and she was struggling to even comprehend questions. I would ask her something and I could see the wheels spinning. And then she would go to answer the question and she would forget what it was. Her handwriting was cramped and slanted, and she was unable to basically communicate outside of yes or no questions, outside of yes or no answers. And so she and her husband had more confidence in this approach at that point than I did. We measured her cognition and she had a MoCA score of 2 out of 30. So MoCA score is the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, and a perfect score is 30. It's a one-page worksheet that you may have seen. Many people who are showing up at this type of webinar have. You identify farm animals or zoo animals, you draw a clock, you say where you are, and what day it is, what month it is, what season it is. You do some math problems. And then you get this score out of 30, and 26 and above is normal. When you start to drop below that, this is measurable cognitive impairment. And many people say mild if you're in kind of that 18 to 23 stage. And yet there's nothing mild about it. Many people are experiencing big changes in their lives. They're not able to manage their finances, they're missing appointments, they don't feel like they can engage confidently the way that they used to. And yet, this is an excellent time to intervene. Although we want to do prevention, many times it's noticing that change that really motivates people to make these lifestyle changes that are so important to protecting your brain health. And so I'm so excited that you're here, and we want to dive into how to do what Linda did, which is change her MoCA score from a 2 in just 6 weeks to a 7. She was able to draw the clock better. She was starting to engage differently. She was speaking in sentences, and her handwriting had gone to that back to that looping handwriting of when she was a school teacher. It was incredible for me to see. And of course, at first I was like, what? Did we miss something 6 weeks ago? But we saw this over and over again at Solsari, at my clinical practice. We saw people do this repeatedly, and I knew we were onto something. What Dr. Bredesen had shown me in his training was repeatable. And so I know this because I've seen it. I also know that this is possible, that we can reverse dementia, we can reverse cognitive decline because we measured it. So we had the privilege of doing a clinical trial in my office over we started in 2020, and I'm excited to share a little bit of the results with you here today. So, what we saw in our study, what we did was we took 23 participants through a 6-month intervention, and the ketogenic diet was part of that. And we had them start with MoCA scores of 12 to 23. So, they had measurable cognitive impairment. And after just 6 months, 17 of those 23 participants had improved. That was about 74% of them. And we were able to publish this in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease. So not only have I seen this, we have measured it and we have published it in a peer-reviewed journal. I'm also, the best part about this story, and the best part about Linda's story being that she's not the only one, is that I'm not the only doctor seeing this. Dr. Bredesen and his group, including Kat Toops and Anne Hathaway and Deb Gordon and many others, are seeing the same thing in their clinical practices. And so this is an exciting, exciting time. There are lots of things that we can do to prevent and even reverse cognitive decline. And the ketogenic diet is one of the most important pieces of that puzzle. I had the privilege of meeting Richard. He and his daughter came in, and he was living in Utah with his daughter, and he was suffering pretty severely with dementia. He was having trouble. They lived in a rural area, and so they would drive by these farms, and he would struggle to remember the word cow or the word horse or barn or dog or cat. And he was also sadly struggling to remember the names of his own grandchildren. And so, in working with Richard and his daughter, we got him on the ketogenic diet. And lo and behold, just about a week into the ketogenic diet, he was remembering his grandchildren's names again. He was remembering the names of farm animals as they drove by. And this was astounding to his family. They were so excited. He also was no longer incontinent. He had been wearing adult diapers, and he was able to get rid of those. This was so, so, so exciting for him and for his family. Sadly, some of those many grandchildren came into town, and one of their favorite things to do with grandpa was to go get pizza and ice cream. Well, lo and behold, after a weekend of pizza and ice cream, he stopped remembering the names of farm animals and his grandchildren's names. At this point, everybody in the family was on board. He needed to be in ketosis, and in ketosis for a while to get that brain healing so that it would stick. This isn't an easy protocol, but nearly everyone can prevent dementia. And most people can even reverse their cognitive decline. We saw that about 74% of the people in our trial were able to improve cognitively. And we even saw that the mean amongst everybody, all 23 participants, was positively improved and significantly improved in terms of memory, MoCA scores, and overall cognition. And this is so exciting. And all we need to do is basically get everyone the support that they need to implement this. The hardest part is just doing it. Unfortunately, it's pretty common sense, but it's uncommon practice and it takes work and effort. So putting this plan into action is what we're here to help you do. So I just want to let you know, and we're going to go into more details, but we have a course, the Marama at Home course, plus live group coaching and a private group, and also live one-on-one coaching where you can get the accountability, you can get the accessibility to me and my team, especially Tyler, our amazing health coach, the inspiration from others, the community. We just had our 12th week today, and it was just incredible to watch how people had connected and how much they were getting value from each other, knowing they weren't alone. And then the support that you need to implement this Bredesen protocol, this approach, which is multifaceted and can feel overwhelming at the best of times. So it takes time, and we're so delighted that we get to support you in that process. We heard from Shelly, this has been a blessing, blessing, blessing already. I got through the crisis, and now we're moving into restoring autonomy and finding balance in our relationship, the relationship between my mom and I, and our routine at home. Having Marama at home plus the coaching has given us the resources to know what steps to take next and put the knowledge to work. So these are just really exciting times, and I want to talk through keto tonight, but I don't want to give anyone the impression that that's the only thing. I wish there were just one thing. I wish that I could just give people a pill or an IV that would reduce or eliminate the suffering associated with dementia, but that's not the reality. But the hopeful news is that there's lots we can do. So let's get started. So we're going to talk about an organic ketogenic diet in detail tonight, but environment, activities, stress management, connection to others, avoiding social isolation, being creative, having meaning and perfect purpose and exciting things going on to do, and getting the medical treatment. These are all components of a Bredesen approach and a multifaceted approach. And so we want to make sure that you know about these other pieces and you get the support that you need. But let's dive into keto. Okay, the basics are you're changing your metabolism. So we're going to go from burning sugar, carbohydrates, glucose, sugar, those can be used interchangeably. We want to go from burning sugar to burning fat for fuel. You'll also hear fat called ketones. That's why we call it the ketogenic diet. We want to shift our metabolism so that we are burning fat for fuel instead of sugar. Now, in order to do that, we have to minimize or restrict significantly our carbohydrates, typically to between 30 and 50 grams of carbohydrates per day. We also want to focus on fat and protein, lots of veggies, lots of fat, lots of protein, and restrict those carbohydrates so that we flip the switch of our metabolism and get into ketosis. Ketones burn much cleaner, so they don't create as much oxidative stress. It also helps us get into this hormetic effect, where a little bit of stress, the restriction of carbohydrates, actually helps us to improve our resilience. It helps our mitochondrial function and basically create more ATP, or the fuel that our cells run on, more efficiently and more cleanly. And it helps us get rid of senescent cells so that we can increase the hormones and the signaling that tells us to create new neurons. The ketogenic diet is a brain healing diet. And we're going to go into some of the questions, but what we're essentially looking for is to increase nutrients and get into that healing state. And you will be able to eat incredible meals. I'm going to share a bunch more about that. And we're going to get into lots of ideas there in a minute. So hold tight. But I also want people to know you don't need to be in ketosis all of the time. You don't need to be in ketosis 100% of the time. In fact, I don't recommend that for anyone. What you want is metabolic flexibility, and we get that by bouncing back and forth between ketosis and burning sugar for fuel. And when we add back sugars, so what I recommend for most people who have any sort of cognitive decline is to solidly get into ketosis for 3 to 6 months. And then for those of you who are in prevention mode, I put myself in that category. I'm in my 40s and I never want to have any cognitive decline. I'll get into ketosis for 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 3 times a year. Now, if you have ApoE genetics, you might want to increase that and be in ketosis about half the year. But for anyone who's struggling right now with cognitive decline, I recommend getting into ketosis for 3 to 6 months. There are a few caveats to that, and we'll go through some of those caution pieces. But for right now, I want everyone to understand this isn't something you do forever. It's part of creating metabolic flexibility and going back and forth. And these things are going to be different for everyone logistically. For those who are suffering with too much weight loss, right? If we're worried about frailty, you don't want to lose too much weight, it might make more sense to be in ketosis less, but you still want to get the benefits of getting into ketosis sometimes. I had a patient of mine come in recently, and she was showing off her favorite blue dress, and she spun around with a huge grin on her face. And she told me that she hadn't been able to wear that dress for 10 years. She lost weight on the ketogenic diet. Some people want that and they celebrate it, and she certainly was. She was able to fit into clothes that had been stuffed in the back of her closet for decades and that she loved and didn't want to get rid of, but she hadn't been able to wear for so long. And she finally lost weight on a ketogenic diet, and she fully resolved her IBS, and she reduced her metformin dose. She was diabetic and she was able to reduce that dose. And she also was telling me how she felt like a new person. She feels like she's actually living her life again, not just getting by. And this goes without saying, her cognition is significantly better. She started with a MoCA score of 20, and now she's at a 24, on her way back to 26 and being normal. And one of the major things she did was get on that ketogenic diet. So, what's required on a ketogenic diet? I have a couple who I've been seeing for a while now, and they've really struggled to get into ketosis. And I think that what was required was them getting on the same page. He wasn't fully committed. She was struggling with cognitive decline, and he wanted to have his beers and he wanted to have his chips and his cookies, and he felt like he didn't need to do it with her. Well, she struggled because his snacks were all over the kitchen and he was eating popcorn and had the bowl between them on the couch at night after dinner. And so we had to have a heart to heart when they came in for their most recent visit. And we had his kids in the room. And finally, he decided to get on board. And as they moved all of the non-keto foods out of the house. So even if you have a banana lying on the countertop, if you're working with someone or if you have a family member who has cognitive decline, they might not remember that a banana isn't on the ketogenic diet. So either putting that away in a pantry or somewhere where they can't see it is really helpful. And everyone in the household getting on the same page and doing the diet is also extremely helpful. And when her kids and her husband decided to commit to fully doing this with her, my confidence in her success shot up. She was already doing really well, but I think the ketogenic diet was the missing piece for her. And so I'm excited to see what happens when she comes back. I have a lot of confidence that she's going to be getting even better. We need to be willing to work together, yes, but also to rethink healthy. We were chatting with a group today, and one of the gentlemen on the call said, I've been told fats are bad for me for so long. It's hard for me to think about adding butter, adding olive oil, or adding avocado oil, or adding avocados into my diet at this level as being healthy. Well, in fact, when what we do is we shift the metabolism and get into ketosis, those fats do become very, very, very healthy. And so that is what we want to focus on is getting those fats up in our diet. We also want to be willing to give up processed foods, and we need to have the ability to do that. So we have to have alternatives. Um, Someone just mentioned that my slides are a little bit broken up, so I'm going to try to share my screen again here and see if that helps. Let me know if that's any better. So we need to have a willingness and ability to give up processed foods. So we need to have alternatives around things like fat bombs. And I'm going to give you a recipe for fat bomb. I highly recommend whenever I get into ketosis, I make sure I have a huge container of fat bombs in my freezer so that there's something quick and easy that I can have if I have a hankering for something sweet and I don't have time to make a full ketogenic meal. Things like hard-boiled eggs. We have a bunch of keto snack ideas that you can have there so that they're available and ready to go so that when you are giving up those processed foods or those easy, quick convenience foods, you have a quick alternative. We also want to be open to cooking in a whole new way. So this might mean learning new recipes, which I love because I think of this as bicep curls for our brain. Whenever we're open to cooking new foods, getting out that new cookbook, maybe talking to friends or family who are also doing this, we can get creative and create new skills in the kitchen and use our brains to maybe shop differently, to cook differently, to eat differently. And this helps not only at a physical level where we're getting new nutrients, but it also helps, again, as that like bicep curl for our brain. It's a very practical way to get engaged. We want to commit to the process. This is not always a linear progression. This is not always a perfect, no one is perfect, in fact. Sometimes there's ups and downs, and we fall off, and we have something that raises our blood sugar. We do something that throws us off. Maybe we go to a party or there's a holiday that throws us off. But it's all about committing to the process, to getting on board and going through the process of getting your ketones up and learning so much about yourself. I love and when people use a continuous glucose monitor, the Dexcom version is a little bit more reliable than the Freestyle Libre. And so I generally recommend that one. And it's a great way to learn what's raising your blood sugar. Oftentimes we'll be having something processed and it says that there's zero carbohydrates and zero sugar in there. But when we see our glucose shoot up, that is an indication of how it's interacting with our bodies individually. I can't tell you how many times I've had a husband and wife, and one of them will eat zucchini and stay in ketosis. The other one will have zucchini and be kicked out of ketosis. Much of this is an individual process. And so learning about yourself, learning what helps you get into this ketogenic state is really important. A willingness to forego typical convenience foods. We talked a little bit about this already, but having those great things on board so that you can grab them and when you're in a pinch, when you're in a rush, when you don't have the time to get creative and get in the kitchen, having something quick and easy to snack on so that you don't reach for your typical bars or fruit or other snacks that might be easy to come by, but not keep you in ketosis. So, what to let go of when we start to think about getting into ketosis? Well, you do not need to be hungry or deprived. This is not a low calorie diet. This actually becomes a very high calorie diet, but you typically have a shift in your body composition. You go from having a lot of fat to having hopefully more muscle, especially if you're doing this with a full Bredesen approach where you have access to maybe some hormone replacement if you're older and you need it, but you're also getting lots of exercise. So we're getting more muscle, we're getting plenty of protein, plenty of fats, and we're fueling our body on fats and we're burning fat. So we have less of that. And you do not need to be worried about hunger and deprivation. We are not restricting calories, just carbohydrates. You don't have to replace your meals with shakes and bars. We can actually there are simple, straightforward ketogenic recipes that are out there that are based on whole foods and easy to cook in the kitchen. You don't have to worry about things being perfect. Everyone makes mistakes, everyone falls off of ketosis, and then the goal is just to get back on. The other thing that I'll share about our clinical trial was that of the 17 participants who improved their cognition, not all of them got into ketosis. Many of them got into mild ketosis for a little while, but some of them never even got there. All of them reduce their carbohydrates and reduce their processed foods. And so, if you can be doing a lot of the other things on this Bredesen approach, then we're going to start to optimize neuronal function or that cellular unit of the brain. We're going to optimize how that behaves and the connections between them. And in that, we're going to hopefully see improvement. So, the ketogenic diet is a big piece of this, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Even just going in this direction can be helpful. We don't have to worry that you need fancier exotic ingredients. This can be done with whole foods that are easy to find in any grocery store. And it does not need to be expensive. So you can start enjoying these foods. I had this Greek family in my office not that long ago, and it was so fun to watch their process. At first, they were, kind of freaking out about how they were going to help dad. It was a dad and his daughters, and then one son. There were three daughters and one son, and it was like straight out of my big fat Greek wedding. They were loud, and like the family time had a lot to do with food, and everybody had strong opinions. And they were scared as we started talking about this. Well, what about giving up bread and baklava and the dolmas and all of these great foods that they've been eating? And they were so expressive about it. And it was almost as if they were in pain, even considering having their dad give up these foods that are so much a part of their culture. But as they brainstormed and as they talked about it, they were talking about what could work. And just in front of my eyes, it was like magic. They came up with a plan and they started planning meals like Greek salads. And they were talking about lettuce from the gardens. They're very connected to growing their own food. And they even have a cousin back in Greece who has an olive farm and has this incredible olive oil. And they talked about asking him to send that in cases. And they talked about the feta cheese and the olives and it was and the meatballs. And they started talking about the things that would work. And it was just so incredible to kind of watch them come around to this in real time and get excited about it and to know that it wasn't about the deprivation, but they could still have this time together, still enjoy foods. And it was just going to be temporary. It's part of what they were going to do to help support their dad in his cognitive process. So I want to share a little bit more about how we work this in at Marama. So Marama is a residential care facility for the elderly that I created after seeing Dr. Bredesen's approach work so well with my patients. I had people asking, well, this is hard. How do we get even more support for my uncle or my parent? I can't do all of this at home. I think many of you who are joining us here might relate to some of the women I was hearing from. Certainly I can. They've got kids that they're raising. They've got a full-time job. They've got a partnership and a household to run. And the thought of dropping everything to support their loved one was just too much. They needed more support. And so out of that was Marama was born. And it's here in San Diego County where we have an immersive experience in Dr. Bredesen's approach. And so a typical day at Marama looks like breakfast, lunch, and dinner with 2 snacks in between. And these are organic and ketogenic. And then there's a walk at 9 a.m. So we get moving after breakfast. We do a meditation. This helps with stress management. We do cognitively engaging activities. We start with the daily chronicles and we get everybody involved and engaged with each other. We have creative arts and gardening. We have yoga and meditation teachers that come in. And then in the afternoon, we do more vigorous exercise and a therapy circuit. And after dinner, instead of turning on the TV, we really encourage everyone to engage with each other through games like Scrabble or Uno or Bananagrams, or sometimes we'll do sing-alongs. And this is essentially the way I think of what we do at Marama is the entire day is planned to optimize cognitive function. And so the ketogenic diet is certainly a part of this, but it's not all of it. And so this kind of helps to put it in the context, put that ketogenic diet in the context of a typical day that's designed for your brain with brain health in mind. So take out your cameras. I want you to take out your phones and take a picture of this kind of menu from Marama. Um, the um, the I'm hoping you can see this. Um, it sounds like it was fixed, and then when I share, it sometimes gets a little wonky. So I apologize about that. I don't know what's going on. But hopefully this will help. And I'll just stop my share in between and you can get really clear pictures of this. So this is a typical menu at Marama. This is 12 days that were real days at Marama. And I hope that this starts to get your wheels spinning in your mind about how creative and how wonderful a ketogenic diet can taste. And lots of variety. And there are tons of recipes online. A couple of my favorite cookbooks are Molly Devine's Mediterranean Keto Diet Cookbook. And then Dr. Will Cole has a Ketotarian cookbook, which is focused on more vegetarian meals. And so there's so much creativity out there. There's so many resources, and it's really a lot of fun to start eating this way, especially when you start feeling better. Another one to take a picture of, and again, I'll stop my share and try again to make sure you're getting a really clear picture. This is one of our favorite fat bomb recipes. And I would love for you, if anybody has favorites, please share them in the chat because fat bombs are something that makes the ketogenic diet way more doable. What I do, I make them with my daughter. She's 5 years old. She loves doing this. They don't require any baking. Nothing has to get hot. We will just do it in a bowl, or sometimes we'll do it in the Vitamix. And we put all this together and I save them in a 32-ounce mason jar that I then put in the freezer, and I can grab whenever I want one. And we have a lemon cardamom zest one. There are cheesecake flavored ones. These brownie fat bombs everyone enjoys. There are so many different versions of this, and this can just be like that quick snack. And they're loaded with fat. So many people will notice that these can raise their ketone levels very quickly. So they're good for you. And then I want to give you some other ideas. So keep your cameras out, keep your phones out, and take another picture of this slide. These are keto snack ideas because sometimes the hardest part is getting creative and remembering, like, okay, what am I supposed to eat? What can I eat? So these are some of the ideas for things that you can snack on, and some of them can even turn into a full meal. Things like deviled eggs or even just hard boiled eggs, quick, easy hard boiled eggs with a little bit of salt or some other type of seasoning on them, cauliflower pizza bites, full fat cheeses, as long as you can do dairy. Dairy is okay on this diet. I don't mind using animal proteins. You're not going to be in ketosis forever. So if you do some more animal protein, more of the dairy, usually sheep and goat are where we want to steer most people towards. They tend to be easiest on the gut. That's ideal. And then when you are not in ketosis, you can go more plant-based and add more of the lentils and the beans and the fruits that are going to raise your blood sugar, kick you out of ketosis. It's not that those aren't healthy, it's that the goal is to shift your metabolism when we are in ketosis. So I tend to support people, especially because many of my patients, many of the people I work with, they're older and we worry about frailty and losing too much weight. So again, having as much variety as possible, having things that are easy, like cheese, is typically helpful as long as you're not lactose intolerant. I know some people worry that dairy can be inflammatory. I recommend organic dairy, and again, mostly sheep and goat cheese, maybe kefir, fermented foods, other things like that, so that you reduce the inflammatory effects of that dairy. Superfood meatballs. Smoothies, we have to be careful with smoothies because many of them will have too much fruit in them and raise your blood sugar. But a smoothie with almond butter and unsweetened coconut milk can be really, really helpful. I love throwing an entire avocado in a smoothie with some greens, some power greens with the spinach and kale and chard, and then putting in some basil or some cilantro, a little bit of lemon juice. That is, it's just a superfood smoothie that's really filling, really satisfying, and very easy and quick to make. Green juices, of course, are amazing and delicious. Again, watch out for fruit that can raise your blood sugar, but adding things like lemon, citrus, like lemon or lime, and then also ginger can add great flavor without raising your blood sugar. Homemade protein bars, guacamole is such a great dip, but there's lots of good keto dips. Things like dill dip that use maybe sour cream or full fat yogurt, and adding, or maybe cream cheese, and then adding spices to that, so that you have a good dip for some kale chips or cucumber or celery. These are great ways to get fat in, but also get in those veggies. Chicken salad lettuce wraps. Oh, those are so good at Marama. Veggie trays with other keto dips. Yogurt with grain-free granola. We often will use hemp hearts, maybe flax seeds, chia seeds to make granola or oatmeal. It can be so, so, so delicious, so satisfying. Macadamia nuts and other nuts, as long as some people get kicked out of ketosis with some of the other nuts. We definitely avoid peanuts, but so the tree nuts tend to work really well, and macadamia nuts in particular are very high in good quality fats. And then, of course, our fat bombs. So enjoy. So with keto meals, you want to get into meal planning, especially as you shift towards ketosis. We want to have a plan because it's going to be different than how you've probably been eating. So you want to choose recipes and allocate the time to maybe looking online, getting a new cookbook, asking some friends who have done it before. You want to make the time to really commit to this process. It is a process. And again, it's this like executive function, right? We have to create a plan. We have to think about the plan, and then we have to execute it. So creating the shopping list might come next. Might be a good thing to do on a weekend or on a day when you have some extra time. And then getting to the store. As we start to think differently about how we're eating, do we maybe want to go take multiple stops, or can we get everything in one spot? Thank you for reminding me, Tyler, to stop the share. I have no idea what's going on here with this, but okay. So we're getting to the store and we want to think through, are we getting it all in one place? Are we going to multiple places? Are there other supplies that you might want as you read through the cookbooks? Do you want to maybe invest in an Instapot or a zester or something else that might make it easier and also fun and exciting to switch the way you're eating? You might want to prep ahead. So maybe it means If you're going to cook on weeknights, especially, and time is going to be of the essence, you might want to wash some veggies and get things prepared and plan for the week so that you can have that ready to go. Maybe things are already chopped or already washed and ready to go in the fridge so that you can just put them together. And then making delicious keto meals. Hopefully, you can do this with a loved one and do this with a group, maybe even doing it with a group of neighbors, and you can share meals. Everybody cooks a bigger meal, and then you share it between each other. I had a patient who was in the clinical trial, and she really transformed throughout the 6 months. She was struggling with pretty severe cognitive decline, and uh, she was desperate because the only living relatives she had were second cousins who were living a few hours north of here. And she wanted to be in the senior living facility they were living in. Her husband had passed away. She had no children, and she was suffering with cognitive decline. She hadn't done her taxes in years. She had a nursery, and things were just piling up, and it was a mess. And all she wanted was to reduce her cognitive decline enough that it wasn't measurable by the senior living community. The model that they have was if you could move in, as long as you had no measurable cognitive impairment. But if you did, you weren't eligible because it was an age in place model. So you could stay there for the same rate no matter what happened, as long as you didn't have any evidence of dementia. Well, this clinical trial participant, she had joined the trial as kind of a last ditch effort to try to get into to be eligible for the senior living process. And she was so anxious. She was calling our office 5 times a day. She needed so much help. She was so worried. And if she can do it, anybody can do it. We were very worried that she wouldn't be able to successfully implement this program. One of the things that happened was that she started cooking for herself, but in that process, her neighbor was diagnosed with cancer. And so she started cooking not only for herself, but for her neighbor. And when she started doing it for someone else, not just for herself, she was doubly committed. She was committed way more than she had been when she was driven out of fear. But when she was driven to help someone else, all of a sudden there was a purpose and meaning beyond what we had any of us had imagined. And so 6 months later, she was completely transformed. She had proven us all wrong. She had done a phenomenal job. She no longer had measurable cognitive impairment. Her MoCA score was above 26. It wasn't at 30 yet, but by 12 months, she was at 30. And she had done her taxes. She had cleaned up the nursery, and she had no interest in moving into senior living. She was out dating. She was thrifting with her friends, and she was fully engaged in life in a way that many people would have never thought possible. And part of it was because of her why. And certainly a huge part of it was the diet. Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen again. I know that this isn't working well, but I want to try to get everyone as much. Oh, enjoy. Of course, enjoyment is the most important part. If it's not fun, we're not going to do it. And so finding meals that are fun for you to create, finding people you want to create them with, making it fun is important. Now, another quick piece to share is that Nutrition for Longevity has a meal delivery service. And so if this is something that's really, really difficult for you to do on your own, then having meal delivery, especially as you get started, a lot of people on meal delivery subscriptions like that, they get sick of the food and they want to start cooking for themselves again and get the variety. But if that's what it takes for you to get started and just get into ketosis, that is a phenomenal resource that wasn't available even a year ago. So it's so fun to watch this gaining traction and supporting people in ways that are really, really practical. All right, so let me see if I'm going to try not to switch slides on you so that you can see this a little bit better. Okay, so I wanted to share a story about Chris. Chris, also in the clinical trial, she was working as a nurse, and this was kind of towards the end of COVID, and she was working in the OR. Really amazing woman who didn't want to leave her community, the other nurses. She had been a nurse for over 30 years, and she was still taking call at night sometimes, and she was having trouble keeping up with the medical records and charting in the computer and learning the computer, learning new things. She was getting by because she'd been doing it for so long, but she was struggling, and she was having to stay after her long shifts to complete her charts, and she was having to ask her colleagues for help. And she was really, really concerned. And so her daughter-in-law suggested that she come into the clinic. She was also under a lot of stress because her son was getting married and there were other health issues in the family. So she was concerned about people in her family. And then she was also concerned about just keeping it together at work. And what we saw was that when she got into ketosis, her husband was fully behind her and really, really supported her in an inspiring way. He was willing to do anything. Um, and we saw that most importantly, her MoCA score went up. So she started with about a 22, and 3 months in, she was at a 26, back in the normal range. She got up to a 27 by 6 months, and she was at a 30 by 12 months. And this was just phenomenal and so inspiring to watch and see. It's such a privilege whenever I get to see this happen, which is frequently and often. And another thing that we measured was the voltage. So our brain uses about 20% of the energy that we create every day, even though it only takes up about 2% of our body weight. And so if we're not generating energy, this is part of why wearing a hat keeps us warm, right? Is because there's so much heat coming off as we're generating this energy in our brain. There's heat coming off of it. And one thing we can do is measure voltage that's coming through the brain to see if we're creating enough energy. And we did this with the QEEGs. And so what we want to be is right around 13, 14. And that's where she ended up after 6 months. When we first met, the energy she was producing was about 7. And through the process of getting on the Bredesen, of course, on the ketogenic diet, but also doing everything else that we do on the Bredesen protocol, her voltage went up and up and up. Another thing that we measured was her reaction time. So we saw that over time, this is like running a race. This is like, you think about going around a track, you want to get faster and faster. And so this number, we want to go down. We want it to get, if it's going up, we're getting slower. If it's going down, that stopwatch is indicating a quicker time. And so essentially that's what happened. The blue line is the physical reaction time. So when we stimulated her brain, she clicked a button. That was the physical reaction. And this orange line is her brain's reaction time. So there was a stimuli, a noise, an auditory stimuli that went in, and this was how quickly her brain picked it up. And you can see both of them over the 6-month intervention got faster. So there are multiple ways that we can measure that people are reversing their cognitive decline through their MoCA scores. Certainly, we also looked at Cambridge Brain Sciences scores, and then we looked at these EEGs that gives us indications a little bit about why this is happening. And certainly producing that energy. We talked about how ketones help us more efficiently produce energy in the brain. And that energy, that resource that we need to either attack if there's invaders like infections or to defend against toxins, we need extra energy. But we also need energy to repair the synapses, to repair the neurons, and to grow new ones, grow new neurons, new nerve cells, new brain cells, and create those connections between them. We need stimuli, that like new diet, that cooking, we need that. And we need the resource, which is the ketogenic diet helps us get there because it helps us create more ATP that burns more cleanly. And so I want to answer tons of keto diet questions. But first, I want to share a little bit more about our Marama at Home program. So we're going to be offering this in January, and we're so, so, so excited to do this. We just finished our fall ones, and what we're doing is um, 12 sessions, and people are getting so much out of this. We do 12 sessions, coaching sessions. There's 60-minute coaching sessions with me. There is a money back guarantee for 30 days. And so we want to make this risk-free. We want to make sure that you feel like this is the exact right thing for you, the right program for you or your loved one. And no questions asked, money back guarantee. And you just have to jump in today to lock in our rate. We're going to do a discount today through December 20th. And so there's 12 weekly coaching calls with me, and you'll get instant access to an 11-module caregiver training course where we break down the 10 basic principles of this Bredesen program. So we deep dive, like we talked a little bit about keto today. There's so much more to go through, but we talk through diet, we talk through the environment, we talk through lots of the different components, of course, exercise, activities, We talk through, oh my gosh, is this working? We talk through exercise, we talk through environment, we talk through lots of the medicine, how to partner with a doctor or other providers. So we talk through each of these pieces over 12 weeks so that you can incorporate each one at a pace that works for you. You'll get instant access to the course so you can go at your own pace, get access to all of the material, and then access to me weekly and then Tyler as well. And we also have a private group. So we have a group. Oh, um, and I apologize about this tech issue. And so we have a private group that you can join. If you're not on Facebook, there's also a forum in Kajabi, our platform. And so you're welcome to join that. And, we all have those questions that you're thinking about in the middle of the night, or maybe you're in a different time zone. And I don't want you to sit in confusion. And there's so many people who can be resources for you in this community. It's one of the best parts about what I've created that I didn't even expect. Is that there's so much value from just knowing you're not alone, knowing that other people are going through similar things, have been through similar things, and that they have answers for you. You don't have to sit in confusion. We're also doing a kickoff call with Tyler, the amazing Tyler. She's so phenomenal. She's been with me for years, helping everyone to get the most out of the Bredesen approach. So you'll get a kickoff call with Tyler where she'll walk you through everything. And Tyler's a health coach. She knows the Bredesen protocol inside and out from working with us in the office for so long. And so she'll help you navigate the challenges and the unexpected twists and turns that come up on your journey so you can stay on track no matter what life throws your way. Also, this process is, of course, individualized. Everyone has their own constraints, their own situation, their own things that they're navigating with their family, with their finances, with their logistics, with what's available to them. And so Tyler can help you to prioritize what's the right thing for you to start with, what's the right thing for you to do next. And so we are throwing in coaching calls with her, which we're so excited about. And we love those. We love getting to know your story. And then, sorry, I have to keep doing this each slide. And you're going to join a really priceless community. In this group, you will meet accountability partners and potentially soulmates and meetup partners and people that you will stay connected to for a lifetime, potentially. We've already watched this over the last few years. We've been offering this Marama at Home course, and we have people talking about how they have stayed connected. They've gotten emails, they've met up with people. It's so fun to see, and ensuring you're in a community with people who are dedicated to reversing Alzheimer's just like you are. It's hard when you're maybe in another support group where they are rolling their eyes at you and saying, this isn't possible. If this was possible, my neurologist would have told me. Unfortunately, the reality is that the neurologists don't all know about this. The research is coming. We're working on it. We're publishing as fast as we can. But this hasn't trickled down into a primary care setting or even a neurology practice. And I feel the moral obligation to share this with as many people as possible because I've watched people change the trajectory of their brain health and rescue it so many times. I watched people with diagnosed Alzheimer's reverse it over and over again. And so I want you to get the benefit of Dr. Bredesen's protocol. Now, it's not easy. It's not always straightforward or simple. And so we want to set goals. We want to do it together. We want to do it in community and then put this protocol to work so that you can get the benefits. So what we are including, I apologize again about this. What we're including is the Marama at Home course, plus the coaching with me, the 12 weeks of coaching with me, the Facebook group, the private group, the one-on-one health coaching calls with Tyler. And this is all worth nearly $6,000, $5,500. And we want you to get access to this right away. So right now you can do one easy payment of $19.97 or three payments of $7.97. And we had couples reach out and tell them that this was a stretch financially, and I get it. So I want to make it accessible so we can break it up into payments. We've had people just tell us over and over again how beneficial it's been, and I am overwhelmed. I'm often moved to tears from just the feedback that we get each time. Beth was telling us that one thing she's noticed is that she feels so much better when she's in ketosis. She has more energy, and she had always heard of keto, but never really felt like she had the resources to do it, the support to do it. And she kept coming back to that she was ApoE34 positive. She had an ApoE4 and wanted to consider that with her keto diet. And we gave her basically the individualized advice so that she could do it. Her labs have changed drastically for the better with ketosis, and she's curious to know what else she can integrate basically from this Bredesen approach because she's already gotten so much. From a couple, they said that their fun and recreation have increased in their life since joining the program. They're always looking for activities that they would both like. Before it felt like work, sleep, and travel and stressful. Now it's more fun. The Kirtan Kriya meditation is something we talk about. And Mary shared with us she could feel something changing in her brain. It was like someone was moving things around in there. She felt more focused every time she did it and less scattered. It's so, so, so fun hearing people talk about how much they love the class. It had been, Kathleen said, doing something like this had been on my mind for years. I'm a nurse and focus on older adults in my capstone paper. I love learning about the brain and I love being with older adults. But I had 3 children and I'd been focused on them for a long time. This is so important to me. It's bigger than my mom alone. It's a humanitarian issue. I love that I'm learning more, using the data to drive what we do so we're not just guessing. I love focusing on what will actually get us results and then how I can use it to help other people. If you can relate to Kathleen or Mary or anyone else, I encourage you to join us in January so that you can get more out of the Bredesen protocol. I want to switch to taking questions, but first I wanted to just make sure everyone has the link. I think Tyler can help and put that in the link. What you will see, I know that my slides aren't working, so I wanted to just share a quick summary slide of what's going on. That now, it's not www, it's now.maramaexperience.com/webinar. And the price is going to go up. I have a book coming out in June of 2024, and my schedule is getting busier and busier. I love doing these coaching calls because the community is so fantastic and so wonderful. And so we want to make this accessible for as many people as possible. And yet my time is getting more and more constrained. And so in the future, we will probably be charging more for them. So please jump in now, take advantage of this special. Also, the price is going up on December 20th. So please jump in right away. We only have spots for 25 people. So jump in before they run out. And then I just wanted to share what it looks like when you log in. So as soon as you purchase, you will log into this website, the Marama home website, and it's really simple. You'll get a login and a password, and you'll be able to get in there anytime. And then when you log in, it will look like this. And you'll have access to all of the videos immediately. You can also schedule a call with Tyler right away so that she can talk you through if you're having any tech issues or having trouble finding anything. She's there as a resource to help. All right, I'm excited to jump into the Q&A. I'm going to go ahead and start at the top. What if someone has gallbladder issues and cannot take MCT oil, have a diet rich in fat? Possibly no keto diet possible, or is there a keto diet available for people with gallbladder issues? Okay, this is such a great question because it can help me kind of talk through some of the cautions. So gallbladder issues are one of these pieces where it is, you want to basically have smaller amounts of fat. You don't want to have huge bolus doses of fat. And so it can be challenging. And I really recommend working with a health coach like Tyler, who can help you meal plan so that you're getting enough fats, restricting carbohydrates enough. But you can also add things like digestive enzymes, ox bile, other things that kind of the gallbladder would have done for you had it been there, had it been functioning. And so that you can digest those fats and it doesn't become a problem. And some people don't even have a gallbladder. So it sounds like maybe you have a gallbladder, but you have issues. So you'd want to talk to a health coach to make sure that you're getting the individualized information to get to make that work for you. Um, People with high cholesterol also worry that they can't do a ketogenic diet. And we actually find that the opposite is true. Sometimes cholesterol goes up temporarily, but if you're restricting carbohydrates enough, you actually start to burn fat for fuel. So the fat in your blood tends to go down. We also want to make sure that this is not a bacon and cheese diet. This is a vegetable forward, high fiber diet. And if you are having animal proteins, we recommend organic, grass fed, so that there's lots of good omega 3s. You're not getting a high omega 6 type of ketogenic diet. And so this is a critical component. People talk about kidney stones and having kidney issues. You might want to be mindful of your protein, but we want you to get enough protein that you don't start to waste protein. You don't start to have muscle degradation. And so, again, working with a health coach if you have kidney issues is worthwhile. So you can have an individualized ketogenic diet. One of the big cautions is, of course, weight loss. You want to be careful if you are at risk for um, too much weight loss. If you're already underweight, then we need to make sure that you have lots and lots of calories and you're getting exercise so you can build muscle and you're getting plenty of protein. So, again, might want to work with a health coach or a naturopath or a Bredesen trained provider directly, one on one, so we can make sure that this diet is optimized for you. One thing that I recommend quickly, as long as you can tolerate lactose, is heavy cream. Heavy cream can be really helpful for maintaining weight when you're on a ketogenic diet. Keep those calories up, really nutrient dense foods, and adding heavy cream can be really helpful. And then if someone has struggled with an eating disorder, I definitely recommend they be working with a health coach who has experience with that, because doing carbohydrate restriction can be somewhat triggering for eating disorders. So really that's the only time that I have kind of really bright flashing yield lights. Make sure that you're working with a provider who you trust there, and you can be really open and honest about that. We don't want to trigger any sort of anorexia or bulimia or other eating disorders. From Rebecca, I'm 75 and have hypoglycemia. I need to lose 15 pounds and I have kidney stones. Is the ketogenic diet right for me? So I would think, yes, the ketogenic diet can definitely help you lose that 15 pounds and help with hypoglycemia. So getting off of the kind of roller coaster of burning glucose for fuel means that you have typically these sugar spikes and drops, sugar spikes and drops. And if we can get you into ketosis, you get this nice, steady state where you stop having those hypoglycemic events. A lot of people are afraid to go in this direction, but work with a coach or work with a provider who can talk you through this. Now, in terms of the kidney stones, it's really important to know what type of stones you tend to make. So if you make calcium oxalate crystals are really common, and there are ways to help to dissolve that. And you might want to watch your protein, but typically adding some citrate and some potassium can help. There are also herbs that you can take to help with kidney stones. And so working with a provider that really understands that. Um, the ketogenic diet versus other diets and kidney stones, it should not increase your risk much unless you're having a lot uh, of certain types of food. So you want to talk with a provider about that. We've been following the diet. This is from Margaret. We've been following the diet for the past 3 years and have different foods been added. How do I find the most current protocol? Great question, Margaret. At solseri.com, we have a keto diet guide that you're welcome to download. And I've had lots and lots of people say that just with that 8-page keto diet guide, they've been able to easily get into ketosis. And we have tips and tricks and a list of foods, phase 1 foods, phase 2 foods, and then what to add when you're ready to bounce in and out of ketosis. So I hope that that answers tons and tons of questions. We can only scratch the surface here tonight, but either Tyler can send you that by email if you want to give her your email, or you can just go to Solcere, SOLCERE.com, and there will be a pop-up that says download the keto diet guide. You're welcome to do that. From Margot, how does tinnitus affect the brain? So, tinnitus is ringing in the ears. And one of my favorite things for tinnitus is actually acupuncture. I've seen a bunch of people be able to resolve their tinnitus with that, but also, of course, blood pressure, managing blood pressure. It depends on what caused it. But that can be very stressful, I know. And also, hearing loss is one of the modifiable risk factors when it comes to dementia. So we want to address hearing loss, address things that are going on in the ears. And so I do recommend seeing a specialist about that and treating it. Powell is I'm an American expat living in France. Yes, it's 1 a.m. here. Thanks, Powell, for joining us. Does anybody know of a medical community here following the Bredesen protocol? I am not familiar with anyone in France yet who is doing it, but I certainly hope so. The Apollo group is Dr. Bredesen's group, and they have a list of providers, and it might be worth reaching out to them to see if there's anyone in France. I know that when you go to their site, they have a map of where providers are. I don't think it tells you the names of them, but there is a map, and I wouldn't be surprised. I know that Dr. Bredesen has trained over 2,000 doctors all over the world, and also then even more health coaches. So there are lots of people. I don't know if his book is even translated into French. Maybe you can share that with us. Are there any added suggestions for Parkinson's prevention and treatment? Gosh, there's a few things that come up with Parkinson's. So Parkinson's is another neurodegenerative disease that it has some overlap sometimes with Alzheimer's and other dementias. It can cause cognitive decline, but typically shows up as affecting the gait and there being a tremor. And Norman Doidge wrote a book called The Brain's Way of Healing. The first chapter of it is about a gentleman in South Africa who manages his Parkinson's symptoms in just a really unique and amazing and inspiring way. So, and then there's stem cells treatments. Of course, the dopamine issue being the paramount one. There are certain ways to supplement specifically for Parkinson's. So I think that would be more of a one-on-one conversation about how to optimize for Parkinson's. From Trevor, is if keto doesn't work in our household, is there a modified version that will still help? What I recommend if you can't cut out your carbohydrates completely, go non-processed. So a paleo diet is another great one. And actually, even for Parkinson's, paleo can be for neurodegenerative diseases in general. Dr. Terry Walls has been studying different diets for MS. And what you want to do is increase nutrients. So a good way to do that is get rid of any processed carbohydrates. And so if you're going to do carbohydrates, make sure that they're squash, that they're seasonal fruit, it's lentils and beans, and it's things that are highly nutrient dense and unprocessed. So you want to be on the edges of the grocery store, right? You want to cook at home instead of eating out. You want to have as many colorful fruits and veggies as you possibly can and stay away from more of the white foods. Probably stay away from, if you're not going to get into ketosis, then you want to kind of skip as much of the animal proteins as possible, but stick with the squash and the beets and the carrots and your highly nutrient dense carbohydrates if you're going to be having those. What sources of keto recipes or guides do I recommend? Well, we've got the Solseri, the ketogenic diet guide on the Solseri website. And then we also recommend the Will Cole's the Ketotarian cookbook. And also I love Molly Devine's Mediterranean ketogenic diet cookbook. I'm 89. So from Rebecca, I'm 89. Well done. Just getting to 89 is an accomplishment. It is a privilege denied to many. I hope I get to make it to 89. Rebecca, I want to say congratulations, but that's just inspiring and amazing. And you're here on this webinar. You have heart disease and kidney disease and do not need to lose weight and diabetes. Is keto right for me? So if you have so what's good for the brain is good for the heart. And you will need to make sure that you have work with a provider because there are multiple things that you want to do probably a little bit differently to make sure you're getting plenty of fiber. But one of the hardest things on kidneys is that excess blood sugar. So we see that many people, the common reason for dialysis, the need for dialysis and a drop in kidney function is actually because of these glycosylated end products where basically your cells are being caramelized by that excess sugar in the blood. So one of the best things for your kidneys if you have diabetes is to reverse that diabetes by getting on a ketogenic diet. Now you want to be careful because of the heart disease. You want to understand why that's going on, why you have heart disease. And of course, be coupling this with exercise, movement as much as possible, and also with a diet that's thoughtful and not just, like I said, not a bacon and cheese diet, but lots and lots of nutritious veggies. But I do think getting into ketosis could have the potential to be very, very helpful and help to reduce your diabetes medications, and good for your kidneys. From Cheryl, I've been following a pretty strict keto diet for a while. My fasting glucose is 112. I've never had it that high. Can keto cause that? I'm not diabetic. Cheryl, that's really fascinating. Usually, when people are on a pretty strict ketogenic diet, their fasting glucose goes down into the 70s or 80s. So it's very fascinating that yours is at 112 and it has never been that high. You said a while, so I don't know exactly how long that is. Sometimes what happens is gluconeogenesis kicks in. So your liver starts creating sugar out of stored glucose or glucagon, and that can increase your blood sugar. Um, I see Susan saying that there's no obvious link to the keto diet guide. Tyler, would you mind throwing the keto diet guide into the chat, if anyone wants access to that? Um, so Cheryl, I don't know how you're measuring your fasting glucose, either maybe a finger stick, and are you getting into ketosis? There are two big issues that come up when people go into ketosis that keep it from working for them. One, they don't add enough fats. So you need to have enough fats that you have that substrate, you have that building block. So that having things like avocado oil, MCT is the thing that most quickly turns into beta hydroxybutyrate or ketones that can be used as fuel. So you need enough fats, avocado oil, olive oil, MCT oil, even butter, your dairy. You need to have that substrate there to turn into ketones. And many people were told, as I mentioned, a gentleman on our call today said, but I've been told fats are bad for me for so long. I'm scared to have more of them. We have to rethink what's healthy. We need to reprogram our brain so that we add those extra fats so that we have those building blocks. So some people aren't adding enough fat. Some people aren't getting rid of enough sugar. And this is where the continuous glucose monitor can be really, really helpful because it can reduce that guessing game when you can know, oh, that thing I ate at breakfast raised my blood sugar, even though it wasn't meant to, even though it's not supposed to have any carbs in it. For me individually, my metabolism raised my blood sugar. So if you're not checking your ketones, Cheryl, I would do that right away. The other thing, Margaret has another question. My husband can't get into ketosis above 0.7. What am I doing wrong or need to do better? So I don't know without asking a bunch of questions, Margaret, but one way to help with this is add more fats and add exogenous ketones. So we use perfect ketones right now. It's just there's either a scoop or I don't really love the taste. So I tend to take capsules when I'm getting into ketosis, and that can really help raise those ketone levels. So making sure you're getting enough fats, making sure that you're really restricting those carbohydrates. Some people also notice that exercise helps them get into ketosis, or intermittent fasting helps them get into ketosis. If you're struggling with too much weight loss, you probably don't want to have too much fasting, too wide of a fasting window. Most people want to fast at least 12 hours. You want to fast for 3 hours before bed. And then, so 3 hours between that last bite of food and going to bed. But then also you want to potentially increase that fasting window to 16 hours. Some people even go to 18 hours. And that can help to get you into ketosis sometimes. Sometimes you just need that push, and then you'll get up there and your body remembers, and you'll regularly get into ketosis. Exogenous ketones are the quickest way I see most people get that number up. From Karen, I read that melatonin and magnesium threonate both help sleep and are good for the brain. It is usually suggested that they be taken right before bed to help with sleep. But does this interfere with the 12 to 16 hours of recommended fasting? Oh, what a perfect question for right after the fasting conversation. What about sleep support that contains tart cherry concentrate? Yeah, interesting. Okay, so tart cherry juice, I actually think of that to reduce your risk of gout, which many people classically will have that toe pain at night. but you may want to check and see what happens to your glucose. And also with those supplements, if they have, sometimes it'll be chewable or gummies of melatonin or magnesium, those will contain sugar. If you just have capsules, they don't typically contain sugar. So you might want to just look at the source. And then the best way to know is to double check. Is this raising my blood sugar? Either use a continuous glucose monitor or prick your finger and see, is this increasing my blood sugar? It shouldn't interfere with fasting as long as it doesn't raise your blood sugar. And I agree, melatonin and magnesium threonate can both be very helpful for sleep. And sleep is a big component of the Bredesen protocol. It's something that we talk about a lot in the Marama at Home program. It's how to optimize sleep. What are the different supplements that you can take? What are the different strategies to optimize that? Because it's so crucially important to brain health. From Rosemary, what a lovely name. I'm on a ketogenic diet and did great for 7 months and now can't get back into ketosis. I increased good fats and put on 5 pounds. So I've backed off the good fats. Worked with a Bredesen trained coach, but what next? So Rosemary, yeah, this sounds a little bit complicated. I'm wondering what changed. What happened to your metabolism that this switch flipped and you're not able to get back into it? Again, as in terms of troubleshooting, what we typically do is add exogenous ketones. We increase the fasting window. Excuse me, I feel like I'm about to sneeze. Um, Increase the fasting window, increase exercise, and I would recommend getting a continuous glucose monitor because I bet there's something sneaky getting them there that's kicking you out of ketosis, and it probably is in a package that says there's 0 carbohydrates, but your metabolism is being affected differently than maybe others, or there's something in the product that you don't realize is in there. So I recommend getting a continuous glucose monitor, definitely pricking your finger, make sure that those are accurate. They're not always exactly accurate, but get a sense and then get that information in real time about whether or not your blood sugar is going up. From Cheryl, my sister has frontal lobe dementia and our family hasn't been tested. I haven't been able to find a family history with this specific dementia. I'm very leery to get tested. What can I do to prevent this? My sister is 68. Oh, I'm so sorry, Cheryl. It is so devastating. And I think that there's a lot of people who are worried, are interested in testing their genetics, are kind of in this catch-22 of, if I know, is that just going to stress me out more and that's going to be worse for my brain? Or can I know and this will be an empowering thing? One of the things I love about the Bredesen protocol is that it's about optimizing your your neurons, the unit, the functional unit of your brain. And so what we're trying to do is get all the junk out, all the infections, all of the toxins, anything that's going to interfere with neuronal health, we're getting rid of, and anything that's going to optimize, we're going to add. So nutrients, the sleep, the stress management, everything that's going to help your neurons heal is what we're going to do. And so the risk of frontal temporal dementia or frontal lobe dementia, this is not as common as Alzheimer's, and so it hasn't been as well studied. And certainly, we haven't studied this specifically in the Bredesen community. However, the risk of trying what we're doing, I think, is very low. It does cost time, it does cost money, it takes effort. However, from a conceptual perspective, what we're doing is good for the whole body. It's good for every cell in the brain. And so, I mean, I want to say it's worth a shot, but in terms of it, it's worth doing to optimize your cognitive function and to optimize your brain health, and come from this perspective of the Bredesen protocol. But I don't have data that I can point to that says that this is, you know, 4 out of 5 times this will be helpful and help you prevent it. Getting tested, I think only you can answer that question about whether or not it's worth it for you. I tend to be a data person. I tend to want to empower people by getting the data, understanding the information, and then using that to your benefit. But if you feel like for you it's going to cause more anxiety, drive more anxiety, be stressful for you, then it might be something that you want to skip. Um, from Jane, where in Arizona can I get the MOCA test? Great question. So MOCA tests, are available. Most neurology offices, primary care offices, memory clinics will do this. And I know there are Bredesen trained providers in Arizona. And and the MoCA test is the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. If you know a provider who is willing to be trained, it's actually a quick training and the PDF is available for free. So it's pretty easy to come by. Not everybody has access to the MoCA test. Not everybody's been trained on it. Many providers have it available, but you can also ask for the SLUMS or the mini mental status exam. Those are both 30 out of a 30-point scale. There's more aggressive neurocognitive testing. You want to ask your provider, if I do this 4-hour neurocognitive testing, how is it going to change treatment? We use the MoCA to know if people are getting better or getting worse. We also have used Cambridge Brain Sciences. That's covered by Medicare. That's it's a research validated, more extensive cognitive test. And so that would be another thing you could ask your provider for is the Cambridge Brain Sciences test, the SLUMS test, the MoCA, or the mini mental status. So there's different ways. Different providers have their favorite. We like the MoCA. It's what we're used to using. It's what our team is used to giving. And so that's what we tend to rely on. From Miley, are there functional medicine doctors you can refer us to who accept Medicare? I live in San Diego County. Yeah, Miley, this is such a great question. And I wish that the answer was yes. The issue with functional medicine is that the insurance companies, including Medicare, they don't like us. It's not that we don't want to take Medicare, but because the way insurance companies kind of dictate how you practice, there's no way anyone who offers functional medicine could do everything in 15 minutes or even 30 minutes. Our office visits last an hour and a half. And especially at the beginning. And so there's so much information to collect. There's a lifetime of history. There are so many things that impact brain health, but it's not conventional. It's not the way neurologists do it in these quick visits where it's like, okay, what's the symptom? Here's the medication. We don't work that way. And so insurance doesn't reimburse us for the time that we put in. And so unfortunately, those don't usually work together. We wouldn't be able to keep the lights on or pay staff if we accepted Medicare reimbursement for the type of visits that we do. So I wish that I had someone I could point you to. It just doesn't typically work. Unfortunately, Medicare doesn't value us the way that patients tend to, which makes it not accessible. I will say though, Miley, that um, the the most important pieces of the Bredesen protocol are totally free. It's things like meditation, ketogenic diet, getting plenty of exercise, combining cognitive exercise with physical exercise. It is, go through a Medicare provider, reducing, like optimizing your hearing. It is getting your sleep optimized, getting sleep studies done and using a CPAP. We're in a CPAP if you have sleep apnea. It's prioritizing sleep. It's a prayer practice or some sort of spiritual practice. It's staying engaged in your community. Many of the things that are most meaningful are free. So start there. Get Dr. Bredesen's book, The End of Alzheimer's, and start there with the things that are free. And then I hope that the research will catch up, Medicare will catch up with the research, and that people will start to value at the highest levels of government will start to value prevention and getting ahead of this from a functional medicine perspective. So from Elena, the best way to handle an 88-year-old male head and neck cancer survivor with dysphagia and weight loss. Um, I have so many questions for you. I don't feel like I have enough information to get started, but we'd love to learn more about that and see if there's a way that we can help. If with Cindy, have you been able to reverse aphasia? I have trouble finding words. So, like, certainly, word finding is one of the earlier signs of dementia or of early Alzheimer's, and certainly we have helped people who are struggling with that and find that they feel more fluent, they find words more easily. I shared Linda's story. She came in with only being able to say yes or no, and even that very hesitatingly, to just 6 weeks later being able to speak in complete sentences. I mean, it was absolutely transformational, and we see that with a lot of patients. I no longer have trouble finding words. I can talk more confidently and more fluently. Again, from Miley, during the eating window, how frequently and how much should we eat? I have a metabolism of a squirrel. I love feeling really full. I tend to eat throughout my eating window, and I've had a slightly high A1C for decades. So, if you are intermittent fasting, you can. That's kind of the idea, is that you just shorten that window so that your gut has a break, and you can eat as much. The idea, especially with ketosis, is you can eat as much as you want. I'm curious if you've gotten into ketosis. Many people, when they get into ketosis, they are no longer as hungry and they find they don't need to eat as regularly. We almost have to remind them to eat. I'm going to take a couple more questions, and then we will be looking forward to hearing from you individually and seeing if there are ways that we can help you. So, from an anonymous attendee, my husband was on the keto diet for almost 4 months, but he was losing too much weight even with MCT. So we went back to eating potatoes and apples, and I take his glucose levels, but don't know if they are dangerously high. What number indicates that it's too high, and how many months can he stay off the ketogenic diet? Yeah, really, really great question here. So I think that, what I would recommend, if your husband was losing too much weight, you want to probably work one-on-one with a health coach or a provider. But if he's in a spot where he would benefit from a little bit of extra testosterone, so from added testosterone, that will help him put on muscle. And then if he has the energy and the ability to exercise, he'll easily put on muscle if he's on a little testosterone. Sometimes even a little bit of DHEA orally, and over the counter can help with that as well. So what you want to do is tons and tons of calories. Hopefully he tolerates dairy, because heavy cream is a way to get lots of calories and lots of fat in, plus MCT. Sometimes too much MCT at once can cause diarrhea pretty easily. So can dairy for some people, but um, we want tons and tons of calories when he does go back into ketosis. And I would say he could get into ketosis for a month at a time if he's still losing weight. But hopefully, what you can do is you can add muscle, and that will prevent him from losing weight. You just get a change in body composition, an increase in muscle, a decrease in fat, but a net zero change in the weight. And then also, hopefully, with more muscle, he's steadier on his feet, less of a fall risk, and he doesn't feel frail at all. That would be the goal. So oftentimes putting together the pieces of the Bredesen protocol, they very much complement each other, including the bioidentical hormone replacement. Was there a way to get the slides? Yes, we will get slides to you all after this event. I'm so sorry that the slides were broken up. Um, okay. I'm looking for Jim. Here's Jim, somebody we haven't heard from. If your weight is below baseline, 110 pounds at 5'5", how can you safely do keto? Yeah, okay. This is exactly what we were just talking about. You want to probably add a little bit of bioidentical hormone replacement so that you can build muscle. And then make sure that you have a very, very nutrient dense, very high calorie diet, right? We don't want you losing weight, but you may get some change in body composition. Now, most people, they'll lose fat, and sometimes if you don't get enough protein, you might start losing muscle. So that's really important to keep the protein up. But there are ways, and most people, when they go into ketosis, even if they're there for 4 or 5 months, they'll lose weight to a point, but then they stabilize. And so I don't want people to be afraid of the weight loss. Of course, we want to mitigate that if you're starting underweight, and working directly with a provider, I think, is the thing to do. One more from Thomas Merrill. Will you say more about the duration of cycles in and out of ketosis? How many months on and how long of a period in between? Yeah, this is a great question, Thomas. And really, what I say is, what works for you? So much of this is individual. People travel. I don't want to interfere with that. I want people going to see their family. I want people going on that trip to Italy and having pasta and maybe having a glass of wine and some gelato. Right? This isn't about being a fundamentalist, right? This is about what works for you. And so typically I say 3 to 6 months for anyone with cognitive decline. And then if after that, it really depends on how you responded. If you felt great in ketosis, wonderful. Spend a month out of ketosis and then spend 3 to 6 more months in ketosis. You just want to go back and forth at some level. Here's the thing, it's easy to be in glycolysis or burning sugar for fuel. You're going to go through an airport, you're going to go to a friend's house, there's going to be a birthday, there's going to be something that you have that raises your blood sugar. It is much harder to stay in ketosis. So, if you aim to avoid sugar most of the time and reduce your carbohydrate intake most of the time, and then really mindfully get into ketosis at some regular interval, you're going to achieve what we're looking for, which is a brain healing diet. You're going to increase your insulin sensitivity, and you're going to get that brain healing fuel of the ketones. You're going to burn energy more cleanly. What I recommend, and we don't have exact science on this, right? This is still kind of at the cutting edge, but what I recommend for people who are in prevention mode is spend, depending on what works for you, maybe spend 1 week a month in ketosis, maybe spend 1 month a quarter in ketosis. Maybe like what I do is I spend 4 to 6 weeks when we do these coaching groups. I basically spend 4 to 6 weeks of those 12 weeks in ketosis. And then a birthday comes up or a trip comes up or Thanksgiving comes up and I fall out of it. So that I think works for me. And so I hope that, that becomes a model for other people, and we can crunch the data, we can collect the data, we can understand what is optimal for most people. But I think that what I lean on is more time in ketosis than not if you have cognitive decline, and regularly getting into ketosis. The hardest part is to remind yourself to get back into it after falling out of it. So I hope that that's helpful. All right. I'm going to take one more from Allison. How do we find specialists local to Atlanta that are trained in the Bredesen protocol? So you can sign up with Apollo, apollohealth.com. They are fantastic. And once you're signed up with them, they will be able to pair you up with a provider in your area. And I know that there's some great providers in Georgia. So you won't be disappointed. I'm sure that you'll get really great help there, Allison. It has been phenomenal spending this time with you. Thank you so much for your engagement. We had over 600 people here at one point tonight, and I'm so privileged and humbled just by your attention and your time. And thank you. You're all pioneers in this space looking for solutions in Alzheimer's. And I'm just delighted that I can start to share glimpses of it with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us. Wishing you all very happy holidays. Good night.